What's up, guys? Andy here with Pittsburgh Weiss Schwartz, back again with another deck tech. Today I'm going to be going over green-red Ruby. That's right, folks. Green and Ruby, the color that nobody wants to play. Um, Generally, it's kind of been seen as one of the weakest colors in Ruby and has been written off by the competitive scene for the most part. Um, but I think there are some really strong draws to playing green, actually, and I think, funnily enough, it can fix one of the main issues Ruby decks can run into, uh, and help solve some of their bad matchups that they otherwise couldn't. And a lot of that, I think, is predicated on the Penny combo at level 1, which, in my opinion, is probably the best level 1 combo in Ruby. Even better than Ruby and John. Or at the very least is a good contender if you are willing to splash into green. But as you see, this is a deck discussion, not a deck tech, so it's going to be a little more than a usual deck tech. I'm going to be giving you the whole deck list here in just a moment, but I do have some additional thoughts that I'm going to throw in at the end of the video. Those being additional tech choices you can make to change this deck to fit your local metagame, or whatever metagame you are anticipating, as well as just some closing thoughts on green as a color in Ruby. So, like we do in all of our videos, here is the full deck list, laid out in all of its glory. If you are here just for the deck list, please slap the like button on your way out. It really helps us out. But I do suggest to stick around and hear the whole spiel on this one, as it is quite a unique deck. As you see here, we have 3 different climax combos. One at level 1, at level 2, and then at level 3. And there is definitely, I found, quite a bit of finesse that's needed to play this deck. It's not a helmet deck for sure. Very adaptable, and what you're going to go for is really going to depend on the situation. But the fact that you have so many bar climaxes to be able to consistently threaten 2-soul pressure versus 8 standby decks, as well as the Ruby finisher to be able to help deal with 8 standby decks, as well as the Ozpin Soul Wall, who's one of the only early plays in Ruby, and also allows you that flexibility in games where your opponent is not tanking up huge on board with their standby deck. If they're playing just a traditional 1k1 deck and you can actually win board for multiple turns, the Ozpin can really shine. And there's a really cool synergy between Ozpin and Ruby that I will talk about when we get to the level 3s. But yeah, jumping right into the deck tech here. We've got a familiar face kicking things off, Yang Xiaolong. She is the clean cut for Ruby. Without a doubt, like, the best level 0 in the set. Overall, Neon Cat's up there too. But Yang just does it all. Great plussing 0, clean cut profiles are something that every deck wants to have, pretty much. And it even retains its usefulness throughout the game. On play, reveal top card of your deck, and if it is a character, you choose one of your characters. It can be herself in the early game to help you get the reverse, or later on in the game you can pump one of your other characters, one of your level 1s or level 3s, to be able to get over your opponent's bigger, stronger character. So throughout the game, this card remains useful, and is a great card to open with. And then next here we have 4 copies of Ozpin. Aside from being the early play condition you need in Clock to play the level 3 Ozpin early play, Ozpin really is our secondary opener card. He's our Neon Cat. He's the other card you want to see in your opening hand. When you go first, you want to see Ozpin. When you go second, you want to see Yang. Ozpin's your best turn 1 play. On play, looks at top 2 cards from your deck, puts them back in any order. And on attack, you mill the top card of your deck. If it's a level 0, you get to put that milled card onto your field in any position. So actual free plus straight to field. And the first effect sets up right into the second effect, as you can know the top 2 cards of your deck and make sure that you're getting a level 0 there. Now, at first glance, it would look like that Ozpin and Yang do not play very well together, as clean cuts, generally speaking, encourage you to try field, where something like Ozpin encourages you to either, if you're going first, you just play this as your sole attacker, but if you're going second, this is encouraging you to dual field and take the level 0 game a little bit slower. But opening Ozpin and Yang is still really, really good. Ozpin getting your plus to the backstage, and then Yang allowing you to clean cut the Ozpin to have another attacker next turn. You don't always have to try field. You can dual field at level 0 sometimes. It's okay, guys. But yeah, just keep in mind if you are trying to go for a try field, the Ozpin can be a little awkward there, but you know, you built the deck. You know what you're looking for on your mulligan. Mulligan accordingly. Try to get Ozpins and Yangs in your opening hand. As well as this next card here, Pyrrha Fall Maiden's Vessel Candidate. We got 4 copies of this. On reverse, reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. And take a character from among those revealed cards and add it to your hand. And then discard a card. And when she gets reversed, she also goes to memory. So free memory compression is always great. And the deck speed from the on reverse effect, looking at the top 3 cards, is also great, allowing you to simultaneously sculpt for your level 1 combo, and getting through your uncompressed first deck. But the main reason we run the card is because we need to get 2 copies of this card into our memory via its effect for the RWBY finisher to function. If you don't have 2 of these in your memory, the RWBY functioner does not work. So do keep in mind, you do need to get 2 of these into your memory by the end of the game, pretty much every time. And that's usually not a problem, because this is a fantastic card to open with, and low power line means if you open with it, it's going to be dying, and it's going to be going to your memory, but it's Weiss Schwarz, people. Sometimes you just don't get what you want. Sometimes you just have a game where you just don't see this card, or you don't see many of them, and you get into your later turns, and you're like, oh shit, I don't have any Pyrrhas in my memory. So do try to prioritize getting these into your memory early on in the game. And have the foresight to know that in games where you are not getting enough Pyrrhas, maybe you need to be salvaging Pyrrhas off of your Brainstorms, off of your level 1 combo, or whatever. But as long as you keep that in mind, that you absolutely need to get 2 of these into your memory by the end of the game, the earlier the better, you should have no problem fulfilling that condition. Next level 0 is one you probably didn't know existed. This is the Weiss promo, the box topper from RWBY, if you buy booster boxes. On play gets 1500 power, whatever. But the main reason I'm running the card is for the second effect. When its battle opponent becomes reversed, if you have a climax on the field, you get to take the top card of your deck and put it into your stock. Since I'm running the Ozpin early play package, as well as trying to then follow up with the RWBY finisher if needed, that can be a lot of stock, so it's a bit paranoid about not getting enough stock. And though at first glance, this Weiss does not appear to be a very good card, she is great blue fix for the deck, which we still want to have enough blue to be able to play the Blake your early play. So this is great blue fix for that. As well as, you know, your opponent's going to be leaving you weak lanes at some point over the course of the game, usually. If there's ever an open lane, that's a prime chance for your opponent to play a level 0 from their hand and get some value off of it, and that's when you can crack back with a Weiss and a Climax to get yourself some free stock. So even though at first glance, low power line might sketch you off of it, it's definitely worth trying, I think. Even if you don't end up staying on 3 copies of it, maybe it's just my paranoia getting the best of me, but do give the Weiss a try. It's the only source of stock ramp and extra stock generation that RWBY has, outside of just triggering a choice trigger, which we don't run. So, this is your only option if you want stock ramp. Then finishing off the level 0s, 2 copies of Life Changing Scene RWBY. On play, this pay 1, discard a climax, and salvage a climax from your waiting room. This is one of the most important cards in the deck and is the sole reason why we are able to get away running a 3 climax split. That combined with the fact that we're running gold bars. Gold bars, when you trigger them, go into your hand. So you will, over the course of a game, be triggering a lot of gold bars. They'll be going into your hand. So you'll always have a climax to be able to exchange for the correct climax if you did not get the right one. And this remains important throughout the game, allowing us to go for additional penny combos if we wind up with pennies in our hand for a second time. But more importantly, at level 2, when we get the Oz Soul Wall off, if they end up living back to your turn, which they won't always, but if they do, this is a way for you to get a second turn off of that combo, which is, with Soul Wall combos, the first turn of it's pretty good, but you really start to backbreak your opponent when you get it 2 turns or 3 turns in a row, and they just can't ever touch you. So this card's very important to be able to enable that strategy in games where that package comes online. Alternatively, in games where your Oz's aren't living and they aren't winning board, that's the perfect chance to play down a RWBY and clock kick your opponent's bigger characters. If they're big enough to get over Oz, that means they have a high-value target in front of you that is ripe for the clock kicking with RWBY. And since we only run 2 copies of the standby, and those don't naturally flow into our hands like the gold bar, this is one of the ways we exchange to make sure we get that standby and get the finisher combo off in games where we need to go for RWBY. And then the last 2 level 0s, we have 1 James Ironwood. He is a filter card. On play, you can discard a character to draw a card. And more importantly, he has a second filter, discard any card from your hand to reveal the top card of your deck and salvage a character equal to the level of the revealed card. This is important because it says we can discard a card, any card. It can be a gold bar climax if we're flooding out on climaxes, or a character if we're ending up just drawing all of our level 3s that we don't need. So yeah, great card in blue. Again, if the Weiss from the last slide was not your cup of tea, you could, up the count on the James Ironwoods in that case, but both cards are actually really good. And rounding out level 0s, 1 copy of a Brainstorm. You might be saying, what the heck, 1 copy of a Brainstorm? That's definitely not enough. But to be honest, brainstorming on your first deck, generally speaking, it's not the greatest play. Generally speaking, in a normal game of Weiss Schwarz, where your first deck is the least compressed you're ever going to be, your brainstorms are least likely to hit. So more times than not, you're going to miss the brainstorm and not get your plus off it. So it's not like you necessarily want to be brainstorming a ton early on. And we do have a bunch of other deck speed tools in the deck with the Pyrrha Rize, being able to look at 3 cards when it dies, and the level 1 combo, which goes through, mills 2 cards when you attack with it. And don't you worry, we do have a few more brainstormers in the deck at level 2, but I feel like it's important to have at least 1 level 0 brainstorm in the deck. So in situations where you do need it, when you do have a lot of climaxes in your first deck, or when you desperately do need to churn through the rest of your deck because, oh my god, there's no climaxes left, it's always nice to be able to grab this in a pinch. And the nice thing about the level 1 combo is it can always grab this card if it is in your waiting room. Now moving on to the Iron Maiden herself, Penny Palladina, the all-star, the saving grace of green in RWBY. It's a vanilla cigarettes combo. So on attack, mill 2 cards, add the level of those cards, and then salvage anything in your waiting room that is that level or lower. And it swings for 7k, like every other cigarettes combo. At first glance, this is pretty unimpressive. During set review season, it was something that we were kind of like a little bit meh on. And I think, again, a lot of the reason people haven't necessarily sleeved up green and ruby is it's just it's just a generic cigarettes combo. That's not sexy. That's not cool or flashy, you know? You have the ruby combo at level 1 that's getting a shitload of power to your whole field. You have the Jean combo, which can stack all your reverses in one lane. There's a lot more sexy options you could be playing. But the one advantage to Penny is that she is on attack. Even if our opponent's playing an 8 standby deck and we cannot win board, we can get our plus. Even if our opponent is playing Attack on Titan or Konosuba, or any other set that comes out in English, that is going to have an Oboro style combo at level 1 that is popping back to their hand when you attack them, denying your reverse. Penny still gets your reverse every time it's on attack. And the greatest thing about this cigarettes combo compared to the other cigarettes combos that people usually hoe and hum at is the fact that this is on bar climax. Bar is one of the best climaxes you can have for a level 1 combo, as it makes it very hard to whiff your level 1 combo, which is always very painful. But since bars will flow into your hand either by clock drawing for them or by actually triggering them and getting them into your hand that way, it makes it very difficult to whiff your combo, which is fantastic. Not to mention that bars coming into your hand on first deck is great because you can slam your opponent if they're triggering all their climaxes or whatever. And 3 copies of the gold bar, not the full 4. Like I talked about before, at level 0, we do have the ruby that can exchange any gold bar that we end up triggering for any other gold bar in our waiting room. So even if we don't trigger this gold bar, we should still have access to it by switching into it with the level 0 ruby. And again, since it's a gold bar, it's very likely that we're just going to draw it or trigger to get it into our hand anyway. So I found 3 to be a good number for it. If you really wanted to kick it up to 4, you could, but I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get to the deck building discussion at the end. And we have a very clean level 1 here, 4 copies of Penny and 3 copies of Adam, and that's it. Adam, on attack, you can sacrifice one of your other characters to reveal the top card of your deck, and if it's a character, you get to draw it. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, the fact that this deck is running so many bar climaxes and an on-attack combo with the Penny means that even if our opponent's playing 8 standby and we're not able to vie for board and we're constantly losing board, we still have a lot of ways to plus and to keep up the pressure with gold bars naturally coming into our hand and being soul pumped to our field. The Penny combo being on attack, and then the Adam is an extra failsafe for those games where we are not able to win field. The fact that he sacrifices any character from your stage means that you can sacrifice one of your characters that has already gotten reversed. So you crash in your smallest lane, and then you can actually sacrifice that character because it doesn't leave the field till the end of the turn. So you can turn one of your cards that already died into a plus, which is great. There's also the cheeky little play you can do with Adam and Ozpin, where Ozpin looks at the top 2 cards of your deck. You see a standby on top, so you swing with your 1 card. You can have a full field, swing with your first lane, and then second attack, sacrifice the card you just swung with to open up a spot to stand by your character. That's pretty cheeky when it happens, but again, we're only running 2 standbys. That's not really the main point here. The main point is when we're not able to win field, this is still a way we can plus to be able to keep up pressure on our opponents by slamming gold bars and turning characters sideways. So Adam is what I went with at level 1 here. Pretty sparse level 2 for the deck. 2 copies of Velvet. She is a 1,000 power assist to our entire field, so this can help the Oz's sit at a little bit higher of a power threshold since they really don't get power from anything else. So it's a little bit of a way to help them get a little bit bigger. Hopefully they live. And is also a brainstorm. So we can either upgrade our Pyrrha that we had earlier on in the game, But the real main reason I'm running this over other cards is the fact that this is a level 2, meaning we at least get to play a level 2 standby target in the deck. We don't run that many standbys, like I said, but we could always climax swap into it if we really wanted this card for some reason. And again, I always like to leave the chance that if you do trigger a standby, I like to be able to take advantage of it. That's what I'm trying to say here. So having a couple valuable level 2s that you could stand by out is always a nice thing. And one copy of the Jacques backup. You could turn this into the Crow free fresh counter if you really wanted to. But like I said earlier, I was a little bit paranoid about stock and was running the Weiss promo just to generate extra stock. And the fact that this is only 1 stock to use the effect compared to 3 stock if you want a free fresh with the Crow is pretty nice to be able to save on some stock. And it gives you memory kick. And since I'm not running the Maidens event in this deck, the money counter, the memory kick can, funnily enough, act as kind of like a pseudo money counter, depending on the matchup. Depending on your opponent's combo at the top end. If they have something like a Finn and Jake in Adventure Time, let's say, that needs to remain on field to deal its burn damage, sending their card to memory will deny them that effect. So it can kind of be like a jank pseudo money counter sometimes, but more often than not, this is just a 3k backup that can maybe get your Oz over your opponent's lane and then send them to memory to deny their encore. And he's extra blue, which is nice, because it can be tough to fit in blue and ruby if you're not like going all in on the Blake early plays and whatnot. But anyway, the main man himself, Ozpin. Here he is. If Ozpin's in your clock, he gets a level minus, so you can play him at level 2. On play, draw 2 cards and then discard a card. And then when you attack with it, if you have this gold bar in your climax zone and have a full field, he gets 1,000 power until the end of your opponent's turn, and the additional effect at the beginning of your opponent's attack step. Choose one of your opponent's characters and give it -2 soul until the end of the turn. We in the biz call that a soul wall effect. And it's one of the only true defensive like finisher options. Generally, it's seen in Weiss that they tend to print. And typically with soul walls, they get better the more turns you can do them. So ideally with these Ozpins, you're going to be playing them down the second you hit level 2, and then for the next few turns, they're going to be big enough to survive your opponent's attacks as you keep playing the gold bar climax over and over again to continuously deny them the chance to deal damage to you. That is the goal. However, Ozpin is not particularly good at living back to your next turn. Unlike a lot of the soul walls in Weiss that have seen success, all of them pretty much up to this point have had other effects that give them a lot of extra power and make them hard to remove from the field. Whether it's getting hexproof untargetable like Maple in Bofuri, or I think I'm getting that right. I think she gets hexproof. I don't play Bofuri. I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty sure she's the one that gets hexproof. Yeah, she does, from the back row. Or like Yoshino in Data Live that has the ability to move around their field to deny your character from being able to get over it. Or something like Arissa from Bang Dream, which just gets a shitload of power and sits at like 15k, so it lives back. All those have the thing in common that they have effects that prevent them from getting removed from the field. Which is something Oz doesn't have. He doesn't get any power bonus outside of the 1,000 power he gets from the combo, so he's weak as fuck. But that's okay. Like I said earlier, you gotta adapt with this deck. If you're playing against a 1k1 deck and the Ozpins can realistically live back another turn, you can set up another gold bar climax and go again with it, which can be devastating to your opponent's tempo. But even in the games where he is going to be dying, that's fine. Very true to the flavor of the show, Ozpin's not there to stop your opponent completely. He's just there to buy you a little time. And Oz does a great job of that, actually, buying you time while you set up the real finisher, the RWBY. And his effect plays really nicely into that, too. Impossible to whiff early play condition, as long as you have the Ozpin in clock. And the draw 2 ditch 1 on play is a really nice filter effect to draw you into whatever pieces you see yourself needing in the coming turns. Whether it's additional Ozpins to go for a bigger denial play the second you hit level 2 by draining their soul with a soul wall, or drawing into his own climax for the combo if you didn't have it already. And setting up just generally for whatever you need going forward. If you need RWBY finishers, you can grab those. If you need extra Piras to be able to get those into your memory to facilitate the RWBY combo, you can get those too. The standby climax, whatever. And the fact that it's a draw 2 ditch 1 is, again, really nice. A way to get... Discarding the card can be a nice thing sometimes. Allowing us to discard extra copies of gold bars that might be clogging up our hand. Or just whatever card is just not doing anything. So, on Play Plus, and again, he's not always going to live back to your next turn. You're not really planning on him to. He's there for like an immediate tempo gain, and then they run him over, and that's fine. But you come out a little bit ahead. Because on play, you're drawing a card, so he replaces himself. And then, even if they run him over, you're still giving -2 soul to one of their characters. For the next turn, which is going to prevent some damage. So even though he's not an early play healer, which is generally like the go-to that people like to see, and for good reason, if you can get the combo off here, you kind of have like a pseudo heal in the sense that you're preventing damage. So yeah, and then it leaves you the threat actually to just loop this combo multiple turns in a row if for whatever reason they don't get over it, which they don't always get over it. And that brings me to the next point, which is going into the next card here, the RWBY finisher. Just to refresh you on it if you have forgotten. When you play the standby climax at level 3, you can... Or you don't have to be level 3. When you play the standby climax, if you have the RWBY in your front row, you can rest the RWBY if you have 2 Piras in your memory. Burn your opponent for 3 damage, and then clock kick the character that is facing RWBY. So, the Oz RWBY combo kind of sticks your opponent between an Oz and a hard plays. If they run over your soul wall combos, trying to deny you the chance to do additional soul wall combos, then they have a high-value target on their field, something that is strong, that's obviously strong enough to beat Ozpin, so then you slam down your RWBY and you kill their thing that's oversized. Especially in matchups like, again, 8 standby, where they're always going to have a massive field. The RWBY is a nice card to be able to clutch on, being able to kill literally anything that's in front of it without going to the combat step. So it doesn't matter how big they are, she'll just kill it. And remove it from the field, send it right to clock. They can't even encore or anything. But if your opponent tries to play around the RWBY combo and says, okay, I'm not going to leave you anything to clock kick, I'm just going to crash cards in and leave an open field, so they don't want to get clock kicked and burned, then your Ozpins live, and you can go for that combo again. So the fact that we have the RWBY Climax Swapper on top of Oz's Draw 2 effect on play, as well as the Neapolitan level 3 that we play, which I'll get to in a second here. You have lots of ways. It's a reactive deck. You see how your opponent's turn goes out, see how they take their turn, and then react accordingly. If your Oz's live, go for another turn of that. If they don't, you can go for RWBY. But proper foresight and planning is how you will succeed. Will see success with these 2 cards. So yeah, just to summarize, Oz is pretty small. If they run over him, you can nail him with RWBY. If they don't get over Oz, then you can loop Oz. Both very devastating outcomes in your favor. And then rounding out the level 3s, 2 copies of the Blake Belladonna Early Play Healer. Early play healers are great. And I always like to see my early plays have, if I'm running multiple early plays, to have like different early play conditions on them. This is 2 or less climaxes. The Oz is 4 or more characters on field. So even if you end up putting a bunch of climaxes into your graveyard, paying them out to summon your Blake, you can still follow up with your second early play just fine. And she's light on stock too, discarding a card from your hand to turning one of those gold bars you triggered into an additional stock to fuel your combos later on is very nice. 1 copy of the level 3 Weiss, again giving us a standby target to slap down behind Oz in the games where we do want to be tanking up with Oz and looping that combo. As well as just being an auxiliary healer if we have to play it from hand, and the preferred card of choice to standby out behind RWBY when you go for the RWBY combo at level 3. And then a very important card here, so important that I actually run more copies than usual. Usually you'll just see 1 Neapolitan, but I'm running 2. Because this just does so much for the deck. Like I said, since we're reacting to our opponent, board state and how they deal with our Oz's, the fact that on play this can grab any climax from your graveyard to hand means that you can pivot into whichever finisher combo you want. Grab the standby if you want RWBY, or grab another gold bar if you want Oz again. And in the games where we need to go for RWBY, but our opponent didn't leave us any reverses, which would generally deny the RWBY combo from functioning, Neapolitan helps to fix that problem, allowing us to summon characters to our opponent's field so that we always have something to clock kick. You can also get a little cheeky with it and summon level 1s or level 2s to your opponent's field to get strategic side attacks for more precise damage. But again, Neapolitan is there to ensure that we can always get whatever climax we need for whatever level 3 combo we're going for, and to ensure that we have targets to go for RWBY if we need to. And again, here is the deck all laid out. Take a quick peek at it all laid out in all of its glory while I take a little drink of water here. Oh yeah, that's good. Record these in all one shot, so need a little water break every now and then. But yeah, if this deck isn't your cup of tea, I totally get it. Green in RWBY is admittedly the weak color. And a lot of people are not a fan of the Oz level 3. I think in practice it works a lot better than you think it would. You just got to change your mindset. You're not expecting Oz to live forever and be a constant soul wall. He's buying you time, and he does that in spades. But generally speaking, the problem with green in general with RWBY and the thing keeping the penny combo from really seeing more play is the lack of good green cards in the set. If you're not running the Oz early play, then there's really nothing at the higher levels that is pushing you into green. Very few good green cards at the high levels, where there is tons of good red and blue tech cards. And again, looking at level 0, there's tons and tons of good yellow and red and blue at level 0, but like very few green. The only playable green cards at level 0 for green are the Ozpin level 0, which again is outclassed by Neon Cat generally speaking, but works well in this deck. And the Lyren Ricky, which again, the quality of level 0s is so high in RWBY, like people don't always even play the Ricky, so let that sink in for a second. So green is definitely a little bit gimped, but we have enough to make it work in this deck. And I'm just a sucker for the level 0 Oz profile, so that's what led me to throw this together in the first place. But it's performed pretty well for me. But there's definitely some changes you can make to the deck if you're trying to tech it for a specific meta. Whether you're planning on playing it in a more standby heavy meta, where you're not going to be getting the Oz's off as much, or just some other quality of life things you want to add to the deck. Your big tech spot to do that is going to be at level 1. The 3 atoms, you can really turn these into whatever you want. It's kind of up to you to decide. Like I said before, I sleeved up the atoms because in the games where I'm not winning board, I want to be able to constantly slam a gold bar and turn cards sideways and keep the pressure on my opponent. And if I'm not winning board, Atom allows me to exchange my dying characters for additional cards for a free plus, which is super good in those situations. But other options you could run here, just a copy of a 2K backup would be an excellent option to be able to grab off of Penny when you get your level 1 combo off and have the option to take it back. That's always nice to be able to grab a backup there, and can give some more livability, some more defense to your Oz's if you want to commit heavier on that combo. Another option is the Pyrrha Suicider. Like I said before, sometimes it can be tough to get the Pyrrhas into your memory. You know, in a typical game, you'll get them there no problem, but in the games where they just do not want to go into your memory, you just can't draw them and can't get them to stick on field. Having the level 1 Pyrrha is a nice little bit of insurance to help ensure that you can get enough Pyrrhas into your memory in time for level 3. And if you're in like a standby heavy meta, or just want extra assurance against your opponent's early plays and higher level characters, you can always run the Neptune, which is a fantastic Adachi, doing exactly what RWBY wants as a set, powering up your field on your turn to get over one of your opponent's other lanes, and then Neptune can crash into your opponent's early play and just send it to bottom of deck, denying Encore and removing it from the field. So all 4 of these cards I really think are great options you could choose to run at level 1 in that Atom spot. In my build, I have 3 spots there. You can kind of mix and match these however you want. But yeah, I was going with the Atoms, and that worked for me. Something else to mention here, if you're looking at this deck list and you like the Penny combo, but maybe you're not really feeling the Oz combo or the RWBY combo at the top end, another option we've talked a lot about on this channel, I know Carmen has talked it to death, is the Cinder combo. And the Cinder combo actually plays very nice with all of the Ozpin pieces, particularly because we get the 2-1 Cinder. I've tested and played around with this a bit myself. Again, I always like to have like a good assist at level 2 to be able to put behind my early plays if I'm trying to, like, let's say, loop the Oz combo. And the Cinder, level 2 Cinder is like a real boon if you're trying to loop the Oz combo. Adding a lot of longevity to those cards, allowing them to really survive a lot more attacks, as well as playing into your other finisher, which is the Cinder in this case. So basically, with this build, you get to pump your Ozpins even bigger, so you're more likely to loop that combo. But if they do end up getting over your Ozpins still, you still have a true finisher combo that gets really big to be able to crack back with. Because the Cinder gets pretty massive. Like, with the assist behind her, she gets to 10, 13, 14. 14k power before any additional pumps. And the Cinder assist can pump her an additional 1500. So even if they get over your Oz's, you can then crack back with the Cinder combo to finish them off. And in that, if you went for the Cinder top end, you would replace the Pyrrha Rizes with the Amber Rickies, as that is the card you need to get into memory for that combo. But I figured I'd just throw that out there as an extra option, as I tested that deck as well, and it felt pretty good. I think I like the RWBY stuff better personally, just because in those matchups where your opponent is just tanking up on board and you just cannot get a reverse because they're so massive playing 8 standby, the fact that RWBY's clock kick is guaranteed, where Cinder you're still having to enter the battle step and fight them, when they could be at a very high power level with backups to go even higher. I like the guaranteed factor about RWBY. And the standby climax there, but I think the Cinder would work really well in this deck as well, as it is the Cinder package is very, very strong, and definitely something that is also very unexplored with RWBY on the whole. I don't see a whole lot of people playing Cinder, and the combo is very, very good. But yeah, guys, that's it. Here's the title card we put at the end of all of our videos. There's the Discords if you want to get online and chat Weiss Schwartz with other members of the community. There's the Facebook groups, and link down to the Weiss Fight Discord at the bottom there, where you can play Weiss Schwartz online. Try it before you buy it. Yeah, pretty much the only Weiss Schwartz client out there at this point for online play. It's like Dueling Book. It's really good. I'd check it out. But that's it for the video, guys. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Again, leave us a like, leave us a sub, and leave me a comment below telling me what you think of Penny Palladina and Green and RWBY. So this is Weiss Schwartz signing off. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.